time now to take a look at what's grabbing headlines in the global press. Solange Boujan is here with us. Good to see you, Solange.
Nice to see you.
We're starting with those celebrations in China, the 100th year of the Chinese Communist Party. What have the Chinese press got to say?
Yeah, celebrating the success story of the Communist Party of China. Well, that's the message that is scrawled today across the China daily newspaper. In addition to this centenary, the government's English language paper is also wishing a happy 24th birthday to Hong Kong's one country, two party system government, noting that its return to the motherland is an achievement for the party. But in Hong Kong, many residents are not in a party mood, according to the Hong Kong Free Press. For this week also marks the one-year anniversary of its stringent security law. The paper says that for many Hong Kongers, today is about, quote, the abiding insecurity of a party that is now bankrupt of any ideology beyond blatant mercantilism and a determination to crush any dissent. So some pretty strong words there.
And that's not the end of the criticism either. There's also much discussion over China's claims that its Communist Party created the economic prosperity that made China the world's second largest economy.
The academics cite the conversation. For them, these festivities are have a slew of mistruths in them. A professor of Chinese studies argues that the party did not lift millions out of poverty, but it condemned them to it in the first place. And now, 100 years later, hundreds of millions still live potentially below the poverty line. Now, it's a view that perhaps he's able to express because he's based in Australia at Sydney's University of Technology. But even such viewpoints coming from a foreign country and a foreign university are a problem for Beijing, according to The Guardian. The paper says that Australia and globally academics and students expressing dissent in regard to China, well, they're being harassed and threatened, leading some Australian universities to consider actually now publishing papers under pseudonyms.
Wow. Here in the European Union, the bloc's COVID passport has gone into official operation from today. The hope is, of course, that we'll all be able to travel across the EU this summer.
Yeah, and the site Courrier International says that the common vaccine pass is an attempt to bring travel back to normal, but in fact, each member state can, and many have, adapted their certificates rules to their country's needs, thereby creating much confusion and different rules for travelers. Now, it's even more complicated if you're coming from outside the European Union. The Washington Post tells us that vaccines like AstraZeneca have the green light. They have the green light if they are made in Europe, but they aren't accepted if they're made in India. A complex mix of rules that the paper said could be seen as discriminatory to poorer nations, but all the same, it isn't for now, at least, because negative PCR tests can always be used if a traveler's vaccine is given a red light.
Okay, staying in Europe, Slovenia takes over the rotating presidency of the European Union from today, ruffling a few feathers in the press.
Yeah, the Prime Minister of Slovenia is an ultra-conservative politician. He's a close ally of Hungary's Viktor Orban. And in taking over the presidency, Janez Janša tried to address concerns, according to the Slovenian paper Delo, by saying that he promises to reinforce rule of law and European values. But not everyone is that reassured. He did, in fact, congratulate Donald Trump on his re-election in November. And as the French paper L'Opinion puts it, rights or liberties could be at risk. And its illustrator, in his illustration, he has a woman with the words liberté, freedoms, scrolled in her hair, saying, hold on, service may cut out, as she heads into the 6-month-long tunnel of the Slovenian presidency.
Some impressive travelling hair there. To the United States next, where the American press is discussing the release of Bill Cosby.
Yeah, and BuzzFeed explains to us exactly what happened, or why Bill Cosby was released on what they call a legal technicality, or that the district attorney promised in a 2005 press release not to file criminal charges if Cosby testified in a civil case, which he did, but that promise was broken, leading the judge to throw out the criminal conviction. And for the Washington Post, well, this reversal is the correct move, albeit a bitter one. For them, it's about the constitutional right not to be tricked into incriminating yourself. In the opinion piece, a former U.S. attorney argues that the court must uphold the right for every citizen, including people who may have had repulsive conduct. Now, NPR, the radio site, says the effect of such an overturning could have negative long-term effects, with many Me Too activists worried that now victims of sexual violence may be even more scared to come forward and to come out about abuse they may have had. Now, it is a slap in the face for the Detroit Free Press. They say it was brought about by Cosby's wealth and his expensive and very good lawyers finding a loophole. But the paper says that nonetheless, quote, he has shown us who he is, and it's certainly not America's dad, and, quote, he should be shunned for it until the day he dies, end quote.
Finally, from you, Solange, no news programme should be complete without a walrus.
Yes, indeed, and a very, very talented one indeed. The Atlantic tells us that zookeepers in California noticed that their male walrus wasn't just making the normal orchestra sounds that walruses do when they're adolescents. He was clapping for hours on end. Let's take a listen to those claps before we go further. So why was he making those 200 decibel sound loud claps? Well, researchers found that it was for love, that such applause were his effective mating call. Now, researchers don't know how he picked this up or if other walruses do it, but this was a very special clap for love.
And a very hypnotic one, actually, to watch. Less said about the clap and love, the better. Solange Boutin with Review of the International Papers. Thank you very much for that.